There we go. Hello, everyone. We are in the middle of chapter 5 in Lessons in Tanya, volume 3 in the physical books. And it's Sharha Yehudva Munah, which is part 2 of Lukutei Amarim. Sharha Yehudva Munah is the gate of unity and faith. So it gives us a good foundation of the unity of Hashem and faith in Hashem. And chapter 5 is where we are. We left off in the middle. And basically, the quick synopsis: if godliness is everything, which the Alter Rebbe is postulating and proving, that then what is the purpose of Torah and mitzvahs? In other words, if godliness already is everything, and sorry, got some kids yelling. And then what is the purpose of Torah and mitzvahs?
Repair.
We'll see. Yeah, it could be Robbie. I'm also trying to keep an ear out for my kids, making sure my wife's got everything. One of my daughters screaming. Um, let's see here. I think she's fine. Um, okay, where did we leave off? Right here. What is the significance of the Torah and mitzvahs? So, if godliness is everything, then why do you need to do anything in the world, right? Because there would be no bad, no good, things like that, or everything would be good, right? And everything is godliness. So what is the purpose of Torah and mitzvahs? And this is where the Alter Rebbe interjects in. This is the Lessons in Tanya, or the commentary, where in this instance, it is the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the most recent, where he's talking about the Tanya here, and he's kind of summing things up. And we do have recorded videos that are in unison. So the question now becomes even greater. The reason we perceive the world to exist as an independent entity is that we view it with physical eyes, and the eye was not permitted to see, and so on, i.e., our tangible corporeality prevents us from beholding the truth. It would therefore be logical to assume that tzaddikim, which are righteous people, inasmuch as they are not hindered by the concealment occasioned by corporal flesh, inasmuch as they transcend materiality, should be able to perceive the truth, that the world truly does not exist, for everything is godliness alone. Those tzaddikim who are at the level of the world of Yetzirah or Beriah, and surely the truly great tzaddikim who have become a chariot of Atzilus. So Atzilut is a higher world where there is only unity, as explained in Likutei Amarim, chapter 39, should not be subject to the restrictions of concealment. So those higher tzaddikim, they would not be, they can see through things, so to speak. They can see the world more or less as it is without the concealment. With regard to them, the above question becomes even stronger. What is the meaning of the Torah and mitzvahs for them? Oh, that's a good point, right? So they can already see things basically with a more real godly view. And so what's the meaning or the significance of the Torah and commandments for them? Since the godliness manifest in this world is revealed to them, there would seem to be no need for them, heaven forbid, God forbid, to perform Torah study and mitzvahs, Torah study and commandments. It was in order to answer all these questions that the Alter Rebbe wrote the end of chapter 4 and the whole of chapter 5, as shall soon be explained. The Alter Rebbe explains at the conclusion of chapter 4 that the tzimtzum is the process of concealment, basically. And concealment of life force is termed kalim, vessels. while the life force itself is called or, light. He then goes on to explain that the kalim are verily the letters. So we were talking about breath and how letters are formed. There's a deeper breath, and then I don't think the Alter Rebbe has gone into detail yet much with it, but as you take a breath in and then you breathe out, as the breath is moving over your tongue and your throat and through your teeth, you produce certain letters. You can produce certain letters. And so just as maybe your breath is this or light, so to speak, the letters are the kalim. But it's basically the same thing. This seems to contradict what was explained in the previous chapters. Earlier on in the first chapter, the Alter Rebbe writes that the letters are the life force of created beings. Here, however, he says that the life force is the light, while the letters are the vessels, which contract and conceal the life force. How is this to be reconciled with his previous statement that the letters are the life force that reveal, as opposed to the kalim, which conceal? However, in truth, not only is the present statement not a contradiction to what was stated earlier, it is actually an explanation of the previous statement that the letters are the life force. The question was raised earlier that since the letters are the life force of creatures, it would seem that there is a multiplicity of godliness. For since Tzimtzum itself is not part to creation, but only conceals the creator from the created. For since Tzimtzum itself is not a party to creation, the multitude of letters is thus caused not by the Tzimtzum, but by elokus, godliness, by godliness itself. The question then is, how can there possibly be a multitude of godliness? The Alter Rebbe answers this in the bracketed text by stating that the tzimtzum and concealing of the life force is called kalim, vessels. One of the novel insights contained in this statement is that tzimtzum is an actual entity. Just as kalim are more than just a concealment of the light, being entities unto themselves, so too with regards to the tzimtzum and concealment, which are deemed to be kalim. They too are an entity. And it is this entity that brings about the contradiction and concealment of contraction, that brings about the contraction and concealment of the light, just as an actual vessel, being an entity, conceals that which is found within it. We are now able to understand the multiplicity of letters. The multitudinous letters are not intrinsic to the light itself. They are a result of its passage through the tzimtzum of the kalim. This is illustrated by the well-known comparison with the sun's rays that pass through white, green, or red glass. The light itself remains simple, unaffected by its passage. However, there is an evident change with regard to its effect. After passing through red glass, the light functions as red light, through green glass as green light, and so forth. This is what the Alter Rebbe means when he says that the kalim are verily the letters, i.e., shaping of the life force into letters is not a function of the life force itself, for the life force itself is called or, light. And light itself is simple, transcending any particular form or shape, for light is rooted in the sun of Havaya. So Havaya is kind of like, is likened to the sun. And in the name Havaya, there can be no multiplicity, heaven forbid, as has been explained earlier. The letters contained in the life force result from the kalim, which cause the light clothed in them to be shaped with regard to their effect. It's hard to make an analogy to such a concept. Like even the light up here, the light kind of does change because you're only reflecting a certain wavelength at that point. There isn't a slight absorption. But this is something, it's hard to explain something that is beyond. Even these analogies are encodings of the actual reality of what happens when Hashem is the reality, and then there's a concealment of that reality. Accordingly, the second question regarding the relevance of the Torah and mitzvahs is answered as well. Where it seemed to be a non-entity and only constitute a state of concealment, its sole purpose being to hide and act as a barrier to the light, then created beings that emerge as a result of this tzimtzum would in reality not exist at all. It would only seem to corporalize that they enjoy a true state of existence. Since tzimtzum does, however, constitute an entity, the entity of Kalim, it possesses existence. As such, its effect is in concealing is similar to its effect when bringing letters into being. Regarding the latter, it was explained earlier that the effect of tzimtzum on the light was that it caused it to assume the shape of the letters. Even though the light itself is not affected, its effect exists only in relation to created beings. Thus, it is similar to the sun's rays, which do not really change in themselves, although the effect of the colored glass on them is to produce red or green light, and so on. The same is true with regard to the effect of tzimtzum in concealing the life force, so that it will not be perceived by created beings. The concealment itself is a real entity. It is true that in relation to the light, that tzimtzum does not conceal at all. From the perspective of created beings, however, that tzimtzum is truly an existing entity. It therefore follows that since they were created through it, they have true tangible existence as well. After the Alter Rebbe concludes his explanation that the tzimtzum and concealment of the life force are termed kalim, which are verily the letters, he goes on to add that these letters derived from the 5 letters Minatzapach, which are the 5 degrees of Gevura. He also states that their source in turn is the supernal Gevura of Atik Yomin. The was it Ancient of Days, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the inner dimension of Keter, a level which transcends the entire scheme of the 10 Sephirot, an elevated spiritual level that is in absolute oneness with God's essence. So that would be at the level of Atzilus.
It's Keter of Keter.
Okay. Keter of Keter. Excellent. What does this have to do with his previous statement that the tzimtzum and concealment is termed kalim and so on? By stating the above, the Alter Rebbe forestalls a formidable problem. How is it possible for the tzimtzum to conceal the light? If we were to hold that the tzimtzum merely prevents the light from being revealed within creation, then there would be no problem. However, in the bracketed text, the Alter Rebbe teaches us a novel concept, that the tzimtzum results from the kalim. Now, since they are a separate entity distinct from the light, the question arises, how is it possible for the kalim, a distinct and separate entity from the light, to effect a change, as it were, in the light? The question is even greater. Light is the attribute of Chesed. Tzimtzum is the attribute of Gevura. In the order of the Sephirot, in the order of the Sephirot, Chesed precedes Gevura qualitatively as well. How can Gevura possibly cause a change in an attribute which is spiritually superior to it? So I want to pause here. If you guys want to talk, that's fine too. He's saying that tzimtzum is an actual entity, but the Alter Rebbe seemed to that's what the Rebbe's saying here. But the Alter Rebbe, from my perspective, he seemed to suggest that Tzimtzum was more of a process, and Kalim was more of a not an actual entity of itself. And then but the Rebbe seems to. Does anybody else seeing that as well? And then the Rebbe is saying something. I'm not saying the Rebbe is disagreeing with him, but I thought maybe it was that the Alter Rebbe was saying that Tzimtzum and Kalim aren't actually really entities.
Well, I don't know, because we would have to say, where are they not actual entities? They may not be an actual entity in what coordinate, but here we know the vessel of godly light is the human body, or the kalim is the human body that houses the soul. Therefore, in malchut, or in physicality, or in a sia, then the vessel, the kalim, has to be something physical, and the tzimtzum has a physical dynamic within it at this level. Now, perhaps maybe the level where he's talking at it's not, and that would be the question. It's kind of like that deal. It's not where it's where he's talking from.
Right. Okay. Good point. Good point. That's a good point. And I think that's actually what he's getting ready to say here when he's talking about the Atik Yomin here. The Alter Rebbe therefore explains that the root of the letters is the 5 degrees of Gevura that divide and separate the breath and voice. So I, I think he's answering my question, Russell. I think you explained it. I.e., the Alter Rebbe is teaching us that the concept of letters is not found only within the Sefirot of Atzilut, but far higher, until ultimately the source of the Gevura is the supernal Gevura of Atik Yomin, while correspondingly the source of the various levels of divine kindness is also Chesed of Atik Yomin. Thus, both Gevura and Chesed are rooted in Atik Yomin, and because that's in the level of Atzilut, they're
That
going to.
is, that would be the malchut of Keter. And so within the malchut of Keter, he's talking about the attribute of what is it, a Hesed Guvurot?
Chesed and Gevura would be inside that as one
Yeah.
somehow. And I think the Alter Rebbe explained it earlier, that he says we can't comprehend that. Our human minds can't comprehend that kind of unity. We can only see the distinction, something like that. Since both attributes are rooted in Atik Yomin, the meaning of which is removed and separated from days, the attributes of Atzilut. Let's see, I got to read that again. I didn't understand that. Since both attributes are rooted in Atik Yomin, which I think I reiterated, the meaning of which is removed and separated from days. It follows that because of their common source, they are indeed not opposites, they are one. For as the Alter Rebbe will soon explain in chapter 6 and 7, even in Atzilus, he and his attributes are one. How much more certainly must this be the case insofar as they exist in their source in Atik Yomin, which is far superior to Atzilus. It is therefore possible for the light of Chesed to be modified. It is therefore possible for the light of Chesed to be modified by the Tzimtzum of Gevura. Okay. In light of the above, we will understand why the Alter Rebbe opens chapter 5 by quoting the Midrashic statement. Originally, it arose in God's thought to create the world through the attribute of stern judgment. So he's talking about Gevura there. Since this Midrash does not seem to offer any further explanation of the topic at hand, why quote it at all? One reason the Alter Rebbe does is so that it enhances our understanding of the entire concept of Tzimtzum. Okay, so he threw it in there for us to ask that question. This will be understood after several prefatory remarks. This midrash is generally thought to be saying that God originally planned that the world be conducted with the attribute of gevura, stern judgment. However, when he saw that the world could not endure this, he combined with it the attribute of mercy.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, thank God. The wording of the midrash, however, is not to conduct the world, but to create the world. Clearly, the midrash refers to God's manner of creation, that he had originally planned to create the world solely through the attribute of gevura. The question thus becomes, how is it possible for creation to come about from the attribute of gevura, an attribute of tzimtzum? I.e., how is it possible for tzimtzum to bring about creation when simplistically tzimtzum is a non-entity? Its function being only to contract and constrain the divine life force. How can the non-entity of tzimtzum create? So he's going back to calling tzimtzum a non-entity. This serves to prove that tzimtzum is indeed an entity. It's so funny how my thoughts are, they like jump to answer my thought right after the sentence. For as explained previously, tzimtzum corresponds to kalim, vessels. This then is what the midrash means when it says, originally it arose in God's thought to create the world through the attribute of stern judgment. God's initial intention was that creation come about by means of kalim, through the power of the light vested in them. That creation resulted from the letters that are formed in the light through its being clothed in the kalim. So we've got two different things going on. You've got the light, which is the substance that goes into a vessel, which is the kalim, which is from gevura. So you have Hesed going into the Gevura. What this is saying is that the thing that makes the Kalim is the Hesed itself. So like Russ, I think what you were talking about, there's two different perspectives. Are you talking about the substance that goes into the Kalim, or are you talking about the substance that makes or creates the Kalim?
Yeah.
Accordingly, I'll see here. Yep. Accordingly, we will also understand the continuation of this passage, that he associated the attribute of mercy in its creation refers to the revelation of godliness through the tzaddikim, the righteous people, the righteous ones, and through the signs and miracles. Why must this necessarily be the explanation of the role of the attribute of mercy? In light of the above, this is clearly understood. Since the attribute of stern judgment refers to the letters, we must therefore say that the attribute of mercy refers to the light as it transcends the shape of letters. This light finds expression in the revelation of godliness through the tzaddikim and through the signs and miracles, by effecting a change in the course of nature. So miracles, I believe, are the definition is something that affects the natural way of the world. It's not supposed to happen this way, and then something happens unnaturally, and I believe that's the definition of a miracle. the letters cause each individual creature to have its own characteristics and nature. Interesting. Let's think about that. The letters cause each individual creature to have its own characteristics and nature. Okay. A change in nature must necessarily derive from the spiritually superior light. Okay, so something is being infused in its natural order.
Just a thought on that one.
Yeah.
We could follow the example of Abraham. Uh, he was locked into his mazal through his name. God
Oh,
changed his name, and then that's spiritually superior light then allows him to change its nature.
that's very good. Yeah, that's excellent.
Mhm.
Right. That's excellent. That's an excellent that's excellent insight for this class because like it says, I try to call this class it's Hasidus for non-Jews, and this goes against us studying Torah, us studying Hasidus seems to go against the nature, right, of who we are, or who people say we are, things like that. Because I get that question sometimes, like, why are you interested in this stuff? you know, like I'm sure you guys have, and some people are just gobsmacked by why we would want to study these things, and the things that we have usually come out of, right, our backgrounds. It goes against nature. You would think we would, if we did things for some kind of somebody saying something. You would think if we did something with our nature, it would be something selfish. We would want to stay in whatever it was that we were in so we could selfishly consume whatever it is that whatever it was, rather than take a hard path, basically. So Abraham's a good example of that. Sorry, I had a Zoom message. I don't know what that was. In explaining that the attribute of mercy refers to the revelation of godliness through the, we already read that. Where were we? Oh, in explaining that the attribute of mercy refers to the revelation of godliness through the tzaddikim and through the signs and miracles, the Alter Rebbe adds the words recorded in the Torah. At first glance, it is unclear what this phrase means. Does the Alter Rebbe refer specifically to the written Torah, or is the oral Torah included as well? Furthermore, the miracles that occurred after the 40-year sojourn, the gerus of the Jewish people in the desert, that occurred after the first holy temple, concluding the events and miracles recorded in the written Torah. That occurred even after the Talmud. The oral Torah has been finally recorded up to and including the miracles witnessed by our eyes and not by a stranger. I'm going to say stranger probably is Nochri there. I.e., the miracles that occurred on the 12th and 13th of Tammuz, and all those are revelations of godliness emanating from the attribute of mercy. Why then does the Alter Rebbe specify the miracles recorded in the Torah? So in other words, there are other miracles that have happened. Why is it specific to what is recorded in the Torah? The Alter Rebbe added this phrase in order to answer two very strong questions. A and B. A, Since the world was created from the letters, from which reason each individual creature has its own character and nature, how is it possible that there be revealed within the world through signs and miracles that transcend nature a light which is superior to the letters? Inasmuch as the world was created through the letters, one would expect it to be incapable of housing a light that transcends the letters, which would still continue to exist as tangible entities.
Okay.
I gotta read that again.
Yeah, that's a powerful statement.
Yeah.
Since the world was created. Jeez.
B. As mentioned earlier, the Midrash addresses itself not to the manner in which the world is conducted, but to the manner of its creation. Ah, okay. God first intended to create the world through the attribute of stern justice. Therefore, but prior to the actual creation, God combined in it, i.e., within creation, the attribute of mercy. Thus, the act of creation is brought about by the attribute of mercy as well as by the attribute of stern judgment. This leads to the following question. The revelation of godliness through tzaddikim and through the signs and miracles took place long after creation. What then does the Midrash mean by stating that he associated the attribute of mercy in its creation, when the attribute was only revealed long after creation? It is in order to answer these two questions that the Alter Rebbe adds the words recorded in the Torah. One of the meanings of this phrase is the godliness that is revealed through tzaddikim and miracles, which emanate from the light that is superior to the letters, as has already been explained. This too was first recorded in the Torah. It follows that it is found in creation as a whole, inasmuch as creation proceeds from the 10 utterances recorded in Torah, as explained above. Godliness that is revealed through tzaddikim and miracles. Accordingly, we will also understand why the Midrash states that originally it arose in God's thought to create the world through the attribute of stern judgment. It was only in thought that God considered creating the world solely with the attribute of stern judgment. That is, from the letters themselves, bereft of the light that transcends the kalim. When it came to actual creation, however, i.e., when it came to the speaking of the 10 utterances that brought about creation, these letters were invested with the light that transcends kalim. Since the letters contain this light, signifying the negation of the tzimtzum of these letters, it is then possible that at the appropriate time preordained when the utterances were first spoken, there occur the signs and miracles that signify the negation of tzimtzum as found below. Thus, all these miracles were not something that came about later. Rather, they emanate from the light and godliness that transcend kalim and that were invested within the letters. This degree of godliness is then revealed at a later time through the tzaddikim and through signs and miracles. So is basically what he's saying here is that the miracles and all these things were already in nature. They were just hidden. Is that what he's basically saying? I think he's saying that everything is just already concealed within it.
I would think that is safe. Yeah.
Okay.
Because it was in his thought, which would be concealed.
Yeah. Or yeah.
That's a good way to
in
put
the
it, yeah.
world of Adam Kadmon, which is a world of infinite possibilities, everything that could have ever been and ever will be, what remains concealed within Adam Kadmon because it's not revealed at that level.
Yeah, doesn't this go back to Abraham's ram for Isaac? That it was in his thoughts during creation. The ram that was caught in the brush
I
for the
do
bonding
vaguely
of Isaac.
remember something like that. Wasn't it like a midrash, like the ram was created?
Yeah, the ram.
Yeah.
I'm trying to recall the actual story and the source, but it's in a bunch of different sources, or it's in a few. I don't know about a bunch, but I've read it in a few places, and I don't know the midrash real good. Never really studied it, but that's might be where it comes from.
Yeah.
And then the other sages use it as a source, as a reference.
Excellent. I think that's a good example.
But there was other things too. Me and Russell was talking about this the other night. There was other things that
there
were
was,
created.
6 things that when there were 6 things that were created before creation.
Well, no,
and
those we
is it?
we looked at those. Those were created on the eve of the sixth day.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the ram was pre-creation in the thought. It was on his thought during creation. So something, and I might have to get that right to, don't quote me on it.
Yeah, we might look into that and see.
Sounds good to me. Yeah, the depth of what he's talking about is like I don't know if I could if I gave an example, I almost feel like the Rebbe's going to say, well, not that. But
that'd be cool if he did. If he came back, no, that ain't it.
yeah, right. This then is what is explained here in the Tanya, that at the very moment of creation, God combined and vested within creation the attribute of mercy, that in the letters of the 10 utterances which are enclosed within every creature, there is invested the light that transcends the Kalim, this light to be later revealed through the signs and miracles. We just went over that. Okay. One question, however, still remains. What of those great Siddiqim who are on the level of a chariot of Atzilut, where whom the corporeal eye of created beings does not conceal godliness? How do Torah and mitzvahs apply to them? It's concerning this that the Alter Rebbe goes on to explain the comprehension of Moshe, our teacher, Moshe Rabbeinu, peace unto him, in his prophetic vision. The above question applies primarily to Moshe. His soul was always in a state of total revelation and not at all concealed by his body, for it was completely penetrated and elevated by his divine service. Interesting. For a person such as Moshe, for whom there is no concealment of godliness, what is the meaning of the Torah and mitzvahs? And with regard to Moshe himself, the question stems not so much from his qualities in general as it does from the distinctive nature of his prophetic vision. Oh, interesting. Moshe was unique among prophets in that not only his soul, but his very body too was equally a fit receptacle for prophecy. His body was not only able to understand godliness, it could actually perceive the godly prophetic vision. This being so, the question becomes all the more demanding of an answer. What is the meaning of the Torah and mitzvahs to so lofty an individual as Moshe? Excuse me. The Alter Rebbe answers this by saying, even the comprehension of Moshe in his prophetic vision did not extend to the world of Atzilus. Interesting. This means to say that even for an individual as great as Moshe, the world could be said to exist. True, it is this manner of existence true it is that this manner of existence was ever so much higher than our own conception of existence, but existence it was. Torah and mitzvahs thus applied to Moshe as well, so that he could transform this existence of his world into godliness. So it appears like the Alter Rebbe is saying that Torah and mitzvahs are just for certain worlds. But I'm not saying that that's what he's saying. But it just appears that would be like a deduction, I guess I'd make. Although Moshe was of the world of its... Oh, yeah, right. We talked about this. Moshe was from the world of Atzilus. He was born from the world of Atzilus, basically. You know, I guess you could say. But he didn't exist in Atzilus or something. I'm not probably using the right phrases, but that's kind of seems what it's talking about. Although Moshe was of the world of Atzilut, and the attribute of Chesed and Gevurah as they exist within Atzilut are godly attributes and wholly at one with God himself, and thus Gevurah does not conceal Chesed. Nevertheless, Moshe's comprehension did not extend to the world of Atzilut, except through its being clothed in the world of Berea. Okay, so he was from the world of Atzilus, and his visions his comprehension did not Moshe's comprehension did not extend into Atzilut.
Right. He prophesied from the world of Berea at that level. He prophesied from that level, not from, it's saying, if I understand this, not from the level that he came from, which was Atzilus, but he prophesied from the world of Berea, which may, which may be connected with the foundation of creation from Berea, or I mean from Berea. And that may be why which is the highest level of creation, but he prophesied from that level.
Yeah, excellent, good. That's a good way of explaining it. Okay, wow, he just throws a lot at us, doesn't he?
Yeah.
This, however, does not suffice. While it is true that Moshe's comprehension of the Chesed and Gevurah of Atzilus extended to the degree that it clothed itself in the worlds of Berea. So Moshe understood, comprehended Chesed and Gevurah of Atzilus through the enclothing of the world of Berea. It is only in the world of Berea that creation first takes place. Ah, Russ, that's exactly what you're talking about. That's why it's called the world of Berea. Because creation has to stem from this Gevurah and Chesed, right? So when it does that, of course, there's going to be a world of Berea. That's what kind of gets like spit out, basically, or whatever. It gets pumped out. Moshe was therefore able to see in the prophetic vision the limitless of godliness, as explained in chapter 4. And surely Moshe did not behold the creation there with corporeal eyes. Okay. God's Gevurah, even after being clothed in Berea, still remains God's Gevurah. Since Moshe was not subject to the concealment inherent in corporeal eyes, he was able to perceive the attribute of Gevurah as clothed in the world of Berea. He did not perceive a concealing attribute of Gevurah. He perceived a luminous Gevurah. Interesting. There's a concealed Gevurah and then the perceived luminous Gevurah. The question thus remains, what was the meaning of the Torah and mitzvahs for Moshe?
With the illuminous, would that be the when he was with Hashem and the
You know, you're talking about the idea where he ascended the mountain,
in his and then
and
came
then
down.
he became, you know, luminous, where they had to cover up their face, where his light was shining through his face, where actually the light within Moses was greater than his vessel could contain, his human vessel, where that light was emanating out from him, much like Adam was, when, you know, Adam was a semi-translucent being, and that it never says that the light emanated out from him, but to me, I see that kind of connection between Adam and Moshe at this point when he ascended the mountain.
Excellent. That's very interesting. And there's the skins that Adam and Eve were given.
Just a quick question on that. Was it the not the light emanating in a sense, but it was that the klipa had been reduced so that something that was already there was made obvious?
The concretization may be, and that may be what this idea of translucentness within the vessel is that it was not as concretized as something that's more dense, that would not let light penetrate its shell, its klipa, its deal. So it's an interesting idea, but I think the idea was connected with that he was, when the way the story goes is Moses ascended the mountain, but God had to descend. Man has to elevate himself up, but there's an idea where God has to lower himself to the top of the mountain, to where he interacted with Moshe at this point. And did that expel the klipa and reveal the true light that was in man? I think it's a very interesting concept to think about.
Yeah, Stephen, that's a good point. That's a good point. Maybe that's where the Torah and mitzvahs come in. Maybe like circumcision, for instance. The Alter Rebbe answers this by adding that the attributes of Hesed and Gevura, as they were clothed in the world of Bria, were not themselves apprehended, maybe comprehended by Moshe, but only insofar as they were clothed in attributes which are of lower levels than themselves, vis-a-vis the attribute of Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. I don't know that Latin. Is it vis-a-vis? Thus, when Moshe apprehended Chesed, I don't know if comprehended. Thus, when Moshe apprehended Chesed and Gevura of Atzilus, he apprehended the Chesed insofar as it is clothed in Netzach Gevura, insofar it is clothed in Hod, and both of them insofar as they are clothed in Yesod. Since his comprehension of Chesed and Gevura related to them only insofar as they were garbed in the concealing cloak of Netzach, Hod, and Yesod, excuse me. Therefore, even for Moshe, the world was endowed with existence. It was, to be sure, a very rarefied form of existence, but it was existence nonetheless. Torah and mitzvahs thus applied to him as well. So basically, it seems like wherever there's not unity, Torah and mitzvahs are mandatory. According to the above, it would seem that within the three lower worlds of Berea, Yetzirah, and Asiya, the comprehension of godliness is an impossibility. All that there can be is godly revelation. This, however, is not the case. For as explained in chapter 39 of the Tanya, the distinctive qualities of Gan Eden, whose place is in Berea, lies in the fact that there it is possible to derive pleasure from the radiance of the divine presence. Igris HaKodesh. So probably we won't be reading that. I don't know if we'll do that. Which is another part of the Tanya. It's further on. I want to circle back around to part one. So this is technically part two. Very, very hard to read part two. I don't know if hard to read is the right word, but it's very mind-blowing, or it's hard to grasp fully. Part one is easier, but it's different. We got to get through this first. The divine presence itself becomes revealed and accessible to comprehension, making it possible that pleasure be derived from it. Now, according to that which was just explained, how could it be? Sorry, my voice is going out. Now, according to that which was just explained, how can it be possible to derive pleasure from the radiance of the divine presence in any of the worlds of Berea, Yetzirah, or Asiya? The Alter Rebbe therefore explains that in Gan Eden, there is an apprehension of the spreading forth of the life force and light which issues from these two attributes, Chesed and Gevura, i.e., in Gan Eden, one is able to comprehend the life force as it spreads forth from Chesed and Gevura themselves without the intermediacy of Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. The spreading forth is to be understood as explained in Igris HaKodesh, Epistle 19, so chapter 19. This comprehension, the Alter Rebbe goes on to say, is the food of the souls, i.e., it is an internalized, like food which is ingested internally. Interesting. So you eat fruit in Gan Eden. So it's kind of like a way to bypass the clothes, these concealments, is by eating.
Part of the three C's?
I'm sorry, Teresa?
Oh, I was asking Russell if that was part of the three C's. The culinary,
Oh.
Yeah, you see the culinary, the cerebral, and the carnal, and which are at the level of Asilas, they're all the same thing. It's all just taking in, whether it's, at whatever, once it comes down into Asiya, the idea of taking in is broken down into these three levels.
But there it's all the same.
But there it's all the same.
Oh, so in the world of Asiya, there are three different things, ways to do it, so to speak. But in the higher worlds, it's considered the same thing, just taking in.
Yeah,
Is
it's
that what you're
taking
saying?
in. Yes, it's taking in. In Asilas, it's taking in. Here in the physical world, the world of action, it's broken down and separated, and basically the word would be like bifurcated out from itself. And so now it's what kind of taking in is it? In that phrase like that is not in the world of Asilas. What kind it's just taking in.
Interesting. Very interesting. However, this gives rise to yet another question. Would we not expect Gan Eden itself to be nullified out of existence, inasmuch as the radiance of the divine presence is revealed there? Moreover, Gan Eden has to do with comprehension. How does it relate to the emotive attributes of Hesed and Gevura? So Gan Eden is an intellectual thing. How does it relate to the emotional aspects of, or the emotional attributes of Hesed and Gevura? In answer to this, the Alter Rebbe states, from the fusion of these two attributes. Oh, wow. Okay. We'll probably stop after this paragraph. In answer to this, the Alter Rebbe states, for from the diffusion of these two attributes, so Hesed and Gevura are being diffused, a firmament is spread. Wow, talking about creation here. Within this is the secret of the 22 letters of the Torah. Again, letters of creation, utterances, things like this. Within these letters of the Torah, which bring all created beings into existence, was clothed the divine light which transcends the tzimtzum of these letters, as explained earlier. Very cool.
The tzimtzum of these letters.
Well, James, we just have a page and a half to be finished with.
Oh, we do?
Uh-huh.
That's a long
let's
way.
go.
You want to try it? All right,
We can try it. I should have drank some tea. I'm almost done with this sinus infection. So let's see here.
Well, I mean, if we need to stop, we need to.
Yeah, right. We'll do it. Let's press on. Okay. Okay, so within these letters of the Torah, which brings all created beings into existence, so the letters of the Torah bring all created beings into existence, was clothed the divine light. So the letters are clothing of the divine light that transcends the tzimtzum of those letters, as explained earlier. So Russ, you basically said a bifurcation. They're calling this tzimtzum. I don't know
Yeah,
if
I get,
that's
the idea, some of the idea of tzimtzum is when, if we was to take like a sock, for instance, and push it and pull it out as far as it would go, and you can get the idea of things as it's stretching out to the capacity of its elasticity, and it kind of, things kind of start to separate out, and then once it reaches its apex, as far as it can go, it springs back and then turns itself inside out, and now the inside is on the outside and the outside is on the inside. And that is the way I had Sinsun explained to me, in that kind of that physical perspective of it.
right, right.
And so I can see when it starts stretching out, just kind of like, maybe at that farthest stretch where things begin to start separating out a little bit, we can see that farthest point being a Sia, to where things are separated out, to where the other end of it, to where we're talking about to a Celis, it's still one thing.
Like a buckyball or something.
Our inside outside ball.
Yeah.
I think we had one of those somewhere.
Or it's kind of like a balloon too, because you have to stretch a balloon so that
That's
you can
expansion.
blow it up.
That's expansion and contraction.
Yeah.
This is the idea of Tsinsun, which is basically making this flip. And this flip, this idea would be yeah. I don't know how to work it. So yeah, it would be this
So it's the dumping out of Chesed and Gevura, to say it in a really like profane way. How do you get how do you take things from Atzilus into this world? You have to use the Chesed and Gevura that was diffused together.
the idea, the kind of the way I was explained, how I was explained, is that all malchuts are here. So all malchuts touch the malchut of Asilus, Berea, Yetzira, Asiya, the malchuts all touch. And so therefore, that's the reason we can have this conversation about it now, or the reason, is because there is a fragment of Atzilut here from that Malchut that's there. And so we wouldn't even be able to have this conversation if that were not
right.
The connection point. So there is a little bit of it here, not enough for us to really understand it, but for enough for us to contemplate it.
Very good. Excellent point. So you can't understand it, but you can contemplate it. That's a good point. Okay. Did you get it? Oh. From the perspective of the Torah, these two attributes, the revelation of Chesed and the concealment of Gevura, do not contradict one another. This is because Torah encompasses them both. As the Alter Rebbe goes on to say, as it is written, from his right hand he gave unto them a fiery law. Torah is thus composed both of right, Chesed, and fire, Gevura. It is therefore possible for the two opposites to coexist. Gan Eden existing as an entity, and within it, the revealed radiance of the divine presence. Okay. Interesting. I think the hailstones were on fire too. Didn't was it hail and brimstone came down onto Egypt or some such?
On Sodom and Gomorrah,
Okay.
and in Egypt as well, which is one of the 10 plagues.
So when things come from heaven, they can be mixed.
Well, that's the idea of the priestly garments being made of wool and linen. And it's like, well, what's going on here? We can't, you can't mix wool and linen, but yet the priestly garments can be mixed with wool and linen.
Oh.
And that's the idea of this, is because the Holy of Holies is not here, it's there. And there you can have a mixture.
Mhm.
Oh, wow.
Because there's nothing separated from itself there.
Yeah.
So wool and linen are the same thing, so to speak. Just like the 3 C's are not separated out. They're separated out here. Linen and wool are separated out here, but in the Holy of Holies, in the presence of the Shekhinah and Hashem, it's not. There's nothing separated out.
That's good.
Leaves a lot to be discussed. The question of how Gan Eden, which is intellectual perception, related to Chesed and Gevur, which are emotive, is answered by the Alter Rebbe when he states, for this firmament is the secret of knowledge, da'at. This means to say that the one intellectual faculty of da'at encompasses both emotive attributes of Chesed and Gevura, and yet the Da'at is a faculty of intellect. Interesting. However, another matter remains to be understood. Gan Eden comprises two aspects. A, in Gan Eden there is Torah study. See Lukutei Amarim, chapter 41. Though in Gan Eden there is no performance of mitzvot, as alluded to in the verse, B'matim Hafshi. I hope I said that right. There is, however, reward for prior performance.
That's the idea of the bringing like the crowns and setting him, but before you see what I mean. All of the mitzvahs you do, what you're doing is actually verifying and establishing the attributes of the name of God here. And it's like how can he be King of Kings? What's he the king of? So, but this attribute of Malchut, where there's kingship, and that we let's say we recognize him as a king and his kingship, and that I don't know if you can say it's a mitzvah to do so, but the idea is because we did it here, now it's a crown that he wears there that establishes. So it's actually what we're doing here in physicality is establishing. I'm going to say it like the spiritual attributes of Hashem, where there is no separation, where nothing is separated out. That's kind of the idea to think about.
Yeah. You can get deep on that too. It's kind of scary to think about. Comes to like different religions and things like that. It's important to have the Torah and mitzvahs. Now it is understandable how Torah can be found in Gan Eden, for as explained previously, Torah is comprised of the harmonious conjoining of Hesed and Gevura. Mitzvot, however, are individualized.
So I wonder if that is what we think about, and when we talk about Torah A and the Torah before Sinai and the Torah before the mitzvahs were commanded.
Yeah.
And now, because now we have the Torah, and then we have the mitzvahs, and because when it prolapsed out, when everything was in a Selis, where we were seeing where they saw God speak. In other words, that is an idea where speaking and seeing are the same thing.
Mm-hmm. And
so the idea was they were at this level of a Selis when all this was going on. But when the golden calf was created, they spiritually prolapsed back out of a Selis back into a Sia.
Mm-hmm.
And then it became a physicality. It became this spiritual concepts of Torah in Gan Eden, like it's talking about, is now the priesthood, the temple, the tabernacle, the sacrificial system. All of these things had to be now physically carried out because it prolapsed back out into physicality. Now, back in Jeremiah 31, it's all going to go back to this Torah in Gan Eden with no mitzvahs.
Wow. That's kind of what I'm saying. It's dangerous because there's some other beliefs I think that would say, right?
No, I can straighten them out on it.
Yeah.
They try to go there.
Thank God. Let's see here. For it is known, Likutei Torah is another Hasidic work. on the Parshas Bamidbar. So there's Lukutei Torah and Torah Or are Hasidic works based on Parshas. I think it's the Alter Rebbe and his son, I think, put those together. Anyways, very cool as well. For it is known that Torah is likened to blood in the mitzvahs to bodily organs. Whereas blood courses through all parts of the body, the organs are separate from one another, each with its own individual function. Since from the perspective of mitzvahs, chesed and gevura are two separate attributes. Interesting. It would seem that from this perspective, Gan Eden could not possibly exist in as much as it is a composite of both chesed and gevura. Furthermore, if the light elicited by the performance of precepts would indeed be drawn down, this light being a manifestation of chesed, would this not cause the very existence of Gan Eden, whose source is gevura, to be completely nullified? The Alter Rebbe therefore says, and the commandments are their garments, their clothing. I forgot he said that, but yeah. Since the mitzvot comprise both chesed and gevura, which are two distinct attributes, it is indeed impossible for the light elicited by the mitzvahs to permeate the souls in Gan Eden inwardly, for if it were to do so, they would be nullified out of existence. Yeah, the commandments are garments. That's right. For this reason, the reward in Gan Eden for the performance of mitzvahs is granted only in the protective and auxiliary manner of a garment. This light is not drawn down into the souls in a permeating manner. Torah, however, which is comprised of the conjoining of Chesed and Gevura, is truly food for the souls in Gan Eden. It permeates them without causing their nullification, unlike the mitzvahs, which are merely garments. The Rebbe this could be very important for us as non-Jews. How many times have we been told can't do all the mitzvahs, things like this, which is, whatever. But when it comes to Torah study, could be very important for us, right? The Rebbe concludes that according to the above discussion, another difficulty, not quite incidental, will be resolved. Namely, where is the concluding bracket at the end of chapter 4? Even in the first edition of the Tanya, this bracket is missing. According to all the above mentioned questions, whose answers are provided by the Alter Rebbe, beginning with the bracketed text in chapter 4 and continuing until the final bracket of chapter 5, this difficulty finds the following simple resolution. The bracketed text beginning near the conclusion of chapter 4 extends until the end of chapter 5. The worthy typesetter, however, seeing two brackets at the end of chapter 5, assumed that one of them was surely superfluous, not taking into consideration that one of them possibly marked the conclusion of the bracketed passage beginning in chapter 4. So it appears to me that one of the big reasons of why the Rebbe wrote this was why in the world was there a bracket in the original text? And this is from Likutei Sichot, compilations of the Rebbe's writings, volume 21 from 1983. So very cool. But it's crazy how rabbis will, it's not crazy, I should say, but for people who haven't studied Torah or seen this kind of thing, I mean, one thing will bring up one little comment or something awry or seemingly awry will bring up a huge topic. And something tells me this might have been the issue. Like somebody asked the Rebbe, why is there a bracket? Why is there a missing bracket
Huh.
in the commentary in the altar chapter?
Yeah,
Wow.
one of
Congratulations.
the
Well,
Chapter
James, I know that we ain't there yet. I know this is we're headed there, but in the first part of the Tanya in lesson 1,
Yeah.
the Alter Rebbe says several times that Torah study is equal to all the mitzvot combined.
Yeah.
So and I guess that's the level he's talking about.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of too, Brad. When I was reading this, I was like, oh, because in the beginning there, which we haven't got to, everyone, we're slugging through the really rough stuff for the foundation, and then we're gonna get to what Brad and I are talking about. But in the first part of Lukutei Amarim, um, which is very pertinent for us, I believe. Um,
So I
but
mean, for us, as non-Jews, what is that saying about when we're told we can't study the Torah?
yeah,
If we're studying the Torah, but we can't do the mitzvot, then
yeah.
it's
Well, I think, well, for one, well, there's a couple things. There's a lot. So there's a lot to talk about there. One, the who's not supposed to study Torah. It definitely appears to me like it is a semantic issue where it's talking about idolaters. Um,
stargazers and
yes, yeah, the Akum,
Akum.
Eved Kohavu Mazalot. It depends what version of the Hebrew you're reading there, either Goy or Akum. So that when it comes to Torah study, it appears to me like that is uh, who should study Torah when it comes to non-Jews. Everyone, any human being is able to study the 7 at least in the Torah. However, that what we were talking about, where it says an akum she'asik betorah is hive misa, akum, an idol worshiper who engages, is osake. That's important. Is osake in Torah. Deeply involves himself in Torah, is worthy of death. What does that mean? Well, it's clarified that it's talking about anything beyond the 7. And so an akum can at least osake in the Sheva mitzvahs, the 7 commandments.
Well,
Now,
I
what
think there's a
happens?
concept too there that combines, if you study the Lukutei Moharan, is that it talks about not studying the Torah for intellectual purposes. So, like if a philosopher was to study the Torah just for intellectual purposes, for philosophy or whatnot, to me, that would be, you know, I think that's a lot of what it's talking about. People who study it just for the intellectual level, where there's no godliness to it.
Well, that's
There's,
that's kind of that's kind of what detractors, the people that wouldn't agree with what the Torah says, the Peshat really. Um, they'll say they will change the translation to say Gentile. They'll translate it into the English to say, oh, Gentiles can't osake in Torah. They can only lamud, which is what you were referring to, which is like a philosopher wants to study it for so he can pass his Torah 101 class in college. He's not really involving himself in Torah to really grasp and understand the mind of Hashem, the wisdom of Hashem. He's studying it so he can pass his exams, and he's just wanting to study the words that are going to be on the test or something.
right.
He wants to write a paper on it or something. Yeah, that's called lamud. And you'll hear people say, oh, you'll hear, yeah, well, no, Gentiles can study the Torah. Yeah, but what they're meaning is they're talking about lamud. They're saying they can do like a cursory study of it, not an in-depth study. If you say osake, if you use the Hebrew word osake, then all of a sudden now you're starting to get into the game, because now you're starting to say, oh, osake, that's a specific type of studying. He's involving himself a lot. Well, I shouldn't say a lot. I would say a vocal minority actually would tell you that means all non-Jews. All non-Jews shouldn't study beyond the seven. That would be a minority opinion from what I've seen, but it's an opinion that gets that doesn't come from anything I've ever seen in Torah before. And on the contrary, what I've seen is that a non-Jew, what I've seen in the Hebrew is that it's an idolater. An idolater can only osake, involve himself in the seven. And then not only that, but I've seen many rabbis, not just today, but even previously, the Hassam Sofer, the Meiri, some that I kind of forget off the top of my head, but explicitly say that non-Jews, such as a Ben Noach, who really believes in the Torah, who is really doing the seven, they can go beyond the seven in their study of Torah. And I have never seen any contradictions besides, like I said, a modern minority of vocal rabbis who have not seen the text, who don't read and understand the Peshat, the actual text of what it says. They read it with a translated glasses, so to speak, in English, and they try and gloss it over as being all non-Jews when that's not the case. It doesn't say Gentile, it says Akum, it says an idolater or a goy, and then the Rambam explicitly says there that when he says goy, a stam goy, he's talking about idolaters. So whether you see Akum or see goy in the Rambam, he's talking about an idolater. And then to go on to the point of doing more mitzvahs, I'm not going to say that non-Jews should do more mitzvahs or not, or that's a little bit more, that's not so pashat. And that's because of my personal experience too within the Jewish community, where you don't want to look Jewish in front of like Jewish kids, because if you don't know the whole Torah, if you're not doing the laws the way they should be done and all the laws, then they're going to point and be like, oh mama, there's a Jew eating pork or whatever. I don't eat pork, but like, let's say I had tzitzit on, or I had a mezuzah on my doorpost. Well, there's a mezuzah on my doorpost, but then the kid looks in through my window and he sees that like I'm lighting candles on Shabbat or something like that, So there's a concept of I don't know if it's more a sign at that point, technically, but there's a concept of you don't want to look like you should be doing something else that you're supposed to, you don't want to lead kids astray, heaven forbid. So when it comes to mitzvahs, that's a slightly different scenario. But
Just taking up what the text was talking about with food. The first psalm in verse 2 is talking about Noah. So I mean the precedent is there for Ben Noah. In verse 2, the first part is his delight is in the law of the Lord. The second part of the verse is after he's eaten it, in his law does he meditate day and night. So this psalm being about Noah, he has taken the law of God, he's eaten it, and he now considers it his Torah. So he's internalized it. And that certainly seems to be flowing on from what we read in the text.
yeah, Steve and I would agree with you. It definitely seems that way. And I think this is what I've seen. And I don't know, Stephen, if you and I have talked before much, or maybe we talked online, but I used to live in a Jewish community. I live outside one now, but so I've got to see different perspectives. Um, I believe that one of the major path to redemption of what we need to be doing is definitely studying Torah. Um, I think we are going to change the world this way for the better. And this is how we are going to help spread Torah. And like here in the United States, I don't know where you're located, so I'm sorry, but we kind of have a moral depravity, and this is going on for generations, of course. But the people are wanting to prevent us from um, instituting laws based on the Bible, based on the Torah, things like this. Separation of church and state, which I kind of am for separation of church and state, but we need to impose through our government, through the Constitution, uh, the morals and values that are in the Torah through of course the governmental process, but by teaching our children. And how are we going to teach our children Torah? You know, the whole concept of just doing the seven and sitting on your couch and well, I didn't kill anybody today. You know, I didn't steal today. You know, I didn't commit idolatry or idolatry today. It's like, who, you know, it's like those are the seven are relatively they're easy to do for most people, or to abstain from, whichever way you want to put it. But studying Torah, like that's how you are disseminating wisdom just on our society. And to say that we can't study to say that we can't study that wisdom is inherently creating or lining us up for creating what's called a hidush das, a new religion, which is forbidden. So either, you know, if somebody wants to bring down wisdom, if somebody wants to reveal wisdom and have wisdom, it's going to have to be through the Torah. That's the only way to do it. And if you tell people that no, you can't study Torah, well, guess what? The people that want to be enlightened, the people that want to have wisdom, they're going to have to go around about it a different way by creating a chidush das, a new religion, which is forbidden. So, and that's actually probably kind of how you get new religions, right? So this we have to be studying this. I'm not telling people to go out and do mitzvahs now. I'm talking about Torah study, but this has to be the way, which is why one of the big reasons why I'm wanting to share this class with everybody, because this is the foundation of it, right? By learning the foundation of the unity of Hashem and the faith in Hashem, then okay, we're not idolaters. We are believing the way that we're supposed to be believing from a Torah perspective. Therefore, we can study this Torah. Therefore, we can imbibe this wisdom, so to speak, and spread it with everything that we're doing in our lives, and we can affect everybody that we come in contact with, and we are going to change the world this way. So I'm so glad everybody could attend tonight.
Amen.
Amen. And Stephen, I don't know if you've attended this class before. I think I recognize your voice though, so. But I do appreciate everybody attending. This is a hard part of the Tanya. This is not easy from my perspective. And but this opens us up to, like I said, the unity and foundation of the faith. And then we can go on to what Brad and I were talking about earlier, which is still deep, but a little bit easier to grasp. So
Well, yeah, one of the things, James, that we read tonight that was very profound, and that I think we're going to need to spend a little time investigating, looking at, because I've never heard of it, and that was the idea of Hesed and Gevurot being on the level of an intellect.
yeah, Das. Yeah.
Yeah, and so but you know that's not the mohin. The mohin, you know, keter hukmabina daas, that is the mohin. The
Yeah.
midot, the body, is the lower seven spherotes.
Right.
And so,
So
how does the body have an intellect?
the Alter Rebbe goes into depth with this, and Brad, I think Brad's read it more recently than me, but he talks about the different chambers of the heart. The heart has different chambers, and there is a chamber that is connected with the above portion of the body, and there's a chamber that's connected with the lower portion.
Yeah, the left would be the evil inclination, the right being the divine presence through the intellect.
Yeah. So there's
That's
like,
good. Yeah.
yeah, I don't want to get into depth on that because I don't know. I mean, you guys can talk about it, but I don't feel comfortable talking about it. Like Brad just said, I totally forgot it was talking about the different sides of, but I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe Brad should teach the next part.
No, that's you, James. That's why we're here. You just
But,
inspired me to jump ahead a little bit.
Yeah, well, good, thank God, and I hope you guys, do what you guys want. If you guys want to jump ahead, then do it. Whatever is driving you, because I think a lot of times as non-Jews we get kind of apprehensive, because sometimes we get discouraged, either ourselves or others, because people will say, well, you can't do that, and that totally just saps the life out of you. And not necessarily that when you have that feeling should you do it, because maybe it's not right, but nonetheless, like, I think a lot of us are on a good path where we should be at least studying very basic things like this, um, like the foundation of your faith, the foundation, if a prominent rabbi talks about the foundation of faith, then I'm going to want to read it or listen to what he has to say. So, and this is a deep concept, right? This is a deep Hasidic wisdom, but it's also very, very foundational or basic. So, well, chapter 5, thank God, went well, and thank you all for showing up. Is there anything anybody else wants to talk about? Alrighty. Well, thank you so much. We did go half an hour over, but man, I had a good time.
It was a great study.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you all for coming. And I look forward to seeing you guys, God willing, next week where we start chapter 6. So,
Thank you,
Thank
James.
you.
yeah, thank you
Thanks,
guys all.
James.
Thank you, James.
Mercy, Robbie, Ken, the Mace family, basically, right? And then Stephen, and I don't think we've met Brea. I don't know. So, and yep, Brea. Thank you all for joining, and tell more people about the class if you'd like. So, take care, everybody.
Thank you, James.
Yep, thank you.
Not all.
Good night.